In this video, we'll take a look at how you can wrap a shape around a tube in WARDCAM. This comes up frequently with people that are doing tensile testing on tubes. They'll have dog bone shape and they'll want to cut that tensile testing shape out of the tube. And WARDCAM, you can either bring the shape in as DXF file, or there's also a parametric shape, and then you can wrap it around a tube so the Z height will change as you're cutting around the shape. So it's kind of a rough idea what would happen. First of all, I want to check to see if you have a variables tube py file in your WARDCAM subdirectory. So we'll go into File Explorer, and you're going to want to go into the C drive and then the program data folder. Oftentimes, especially on newer computers, that program data folder is a hidden folder. So if you're not seeing program data here, you want to go up to Options. So you can do it here through the View, Show Hidden Files Folders, or in the View menu, Show Hidden Items. And then you should see Program Data. And then you'll want to go into WARDJET, WARDCAM, Scripts, Posts, and the WARDJET X series. And if you see a file in here called variables tube.py, then should be good to go. If not, then you can download it from our akulu.wardjet.com wiki page. Let me pull that up. So akulu.wardjet.com. If you haven't been there before, this address here brings you here. Scroll down, you got the WARDCAM area, and then scroll down, you've got this section for tubes variable file. And you'll click on this. It's going to download this with a .txt extension. And I'm going to put this into my downloads. And then we'll go into downloads. We'll have a .txt extension. You want to change that. And also, depending on how your file explorer is set up, it may not be showing file name extensions. So then you would just see this. If that's the case, then you want to go to the View and Show File Name Extensions. Makes it a little bit easier to change the extension, and then you can click into there and change that to PY. Yes. And then we can cut or copy. And we're going to go back to that location there and paste it in here. Now that we've got that in there, now we can go into WARDCAM and we can set up a machine that points to that variables file. Go into your machine database, pick the machine that you usually use. I'm going to assume it's going to be this one here. Down at the bottom, click on Add Machine. When you do that, it's going to make a copy of the machine that you had selected previously and put new in front of it. And then you can rename it. Maybe stick tube at the start or end of it, whichever makes sense. You're going to want to copy materials from the material database of the machine that you use most of the time. Once you select that, click on Copy Materials, come up and say Finish Copying Materials. And then to tell it to look at that tubes variables file, we're going to click on this Advanced button. This is the variables file that it's currently looking at. Click on Choose File. And then we're going to go back to that program data location. Click on the variables tube.py, click on Open, and you should see it change there. And then you can click on Save and Exit. So we'll go into our shape library and get the dog bone shape. And we'll just go with the default numbers there. Click on the Next button. And then we're to choose that new machine, choose your material, wall thickness, hit your next button, and when you apply your toolpath, you're probably going to want to put your lead in at the apex of the tube. So if we envision that we're going to have the tube going left to right on the table, we're going to put our lead in here, a bit of a tab there, change your quality as needed, usually on the tensile testing. We'll put smoothest in this area here, and might even go fast or fastest in the rest of it. Whatever you want to do there. And then hit your next button. And then important is you want to move your 0, point also be at the apex of the tube, which should be basically the midpoint of this line here. So as I hover near that midpoint, see the little, barely see that little blue triangle in the background there behind my cursor. When you see that blue triangle, left click, and that will put your 0 point right in the midpoint of that line, which will set up as being the apex of the tube. And so we can see what's different in the variables file. If you go to options, edit variables, and you should see a pipes tab. Breakup distance is what it's going to break up the line segments for. Generally don't need to change that. Nozzle diameter, so it knows how close the nozzle is going to get to the tube. Generally can keep that there. Important that you change this each time depending on the diameter of the pipe that you're cutting this on. And then probably the one that can be a little bit confusing is this one here, project about X, whether the part's X coordinates will be wrapped on the pipe. And if we are having the tube going left to right on the table, like we were doing here, you're going to want to leave this turned off. And then when we're moving in Y, we'll see the Z values will change, but when we're moving left to right in X, the Z value will stay where it is. And then, of course, also important is project on pipe and have this turned on. And this is also why it's important to have a separate machine for the tube cutting. If somebody were to set up tube cutting on the regular machine and then come in here and turn this on, and then the next person comes along and doesn't realize that this is turned on, they'll get Z motion, which will drive their nozzle down into the material. So good idea to set up this tube machine as its own special thing with this button here turned on. We didn't make any changes, but we'll do save and exit anyways. CNC it. It will pop this up to let you know that there's some negative Z values in there, so that if you were thinking that you were programming a flat part and this popped up, hopefully it would trigger something and be like, oh, okay, I guess I selected the wrong machine. Then we'll click OK. And so based on where the lead-in was, I must have been slightly off center at the lead-in point, which is okay, 0.2 of an inch, pretty insignificant. This will be the lead-in, and then as it starts moving in Y, we see that the Z value changes. So Z value gets more and more negative, and kind of scroll through here and see how the Z values change. And then when you do go to cut this on the machine, obviously a good idea to not have the tube in the machine and dry run this at a safe height so you don't break anything. And if you have any questions on that, let me know. Thanks.